the second interview of the day here on the CHF Overtime Podcast. My name is Jordan DeLuciano. Joining me now is the CHF Deputy and NEIHC Commissioner, Jay Turcotte. Second time this year on the podcast. Thank you for coming back, Jay.
Jordan, it's a pleasure.
So we'll start off on the NEIHC aspect of things to begin this. Babson, reigning champions, right back in the thick of things. Again, are you surprised by them being back? Is it just business as usual with Babson?
Jordan, I'd have to agree with you. It's probably business as usual. They only graduated a percentage of the national championship team. They did have a lot of returning players, and it's great coaching. Matt Baldino does a great job. The interior makeup of the team is still very solid. And they have the luxury of being right in the heart of New England hockey country, so they get quite a bit of an influx of, prep school and very experienced, in some cases, junior players that aren't playing NCAA hockey. They play on the club program, and they're always solid. They really are.
Yeah, the team that went from the road unknown last year is now everyone they are now. They're just outside the top 10 right now, but a team that's also making some noise with the New England Conference is having a pretty solid season of their own is University of New Hampshire. And recently I got to talk to one of the players, John Gallagher, pointing out month, but UNH having a very solid year.
Yeah, Jordan, it's funny with UNH, John Gallagher was kind of second in command last year when Wes Coonan was the leader of the program. And, they in turn only graduated a percentage. I mean, they don't have a gigantic roster, but they probably have 3/4 of their club returning. And it was a solid program last year. They've added some fresh guys, incoming freshmen transfers. And Wes Coonan, who was the leader of the program last year, graduated, but he's come back and is working for the university and is now their head coach.
Yep.
So it's there's some good continuity there, and the hard part I think is last year they kind of got the lay of the land, and then this year they have a real good feel for what they need to do and who they need to do it to.
I remember him telling me that the Coonan, he was player last year, is now one of the couple teams in the CHF that had that student-run head coaching staff. One that always comes to mind is Benton, and how good they have prospered the player behind a former player and a young former player behind the bench.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's a tribute to these guys and their feeling for their program and the understanding that it's a great opportunity to give back and do something that they love. So it's a win-win all around.
So now on to another team is we spoke about them a little bit on their first appearance earlier in the year is Anna Maria. So they have games against teams in the D2. New Hampshire, they have a win against. They beat Babson 4-3 this year in overtime, but they are in the American division, like that Division 3 with St. John Fisher, Farmingdale's D3, Niagara's D3, and Tampa's D3. So what is their situation exactly? Because like I mentioned, they played against Babson, but yet they're D3.
Well, conveniently for them, I mean, their games against Babson and UNH and Mass Maritime, for that matter, are all conference games. So the NEIHC crosses over that line between the national and the American teams. Anna Maria is the byproduct of a solid NCAA program. None of these guys are NCAA players, but they draw, much like Babson, a great contingent of former prep and junior players in school. So you're very deep. I mean, it's really a very solid program, and they have the right mindset. The reason the American national issue is that they really don't have any aspirations of playing beyond their conference schedule. They view this team as essentially a JV team for their NCAA program. By that I mean the players that are just on the outside looking in for the NCAA roster, and other players that they have on campus that they want to maintain contact with, they put into the club program. It's well coached, it's well supported by the school. And ultimately, it's a very good team, but they don't really have any aspirations to do anything other than play their conference schedule and maybe a handful of non-league games.
So will they be right now? They're third in the American division. Will they be going to the Fed Cup, or they're just play the regular season and call it?
Well, it's. I think the last time we talked, it was up in the air. Right after that, they were kind of like, no, we're content with playing our conference schedule. But as the season's gone on, I think the thought process is working again there. It's not definitive. I know they're considering it, so it's kind of you're gonna have to wait and see on Anna Maria to see which path they choose.
All right. Yep. So, all right. Still up in the air with Anna Maria. I know that was a team I was always like, even last year, because they took, I believe, maybe tied Babson, took Babson to the brink last year. And I'm like, who are these guys? These Anna Maria team.
Well, last year we had the cumulative rankings, and Anna Maria was in the top 15 all year. Because once again, they play a very competitive schedule. But they don't have they don't have the mechanism in place there to do anything more than play a conference schedule. Like I said, they're discussing it internally. That doesn't guarantee they'll go one way or the other, but I've posed that idea to them at the end of last season, saying, hey, you guys might want to consider, a little bit bigger footprint. And they started that chewing on it process, I guess, at the end of last season, and it's still in place.
So lastly, to a team within the NEIHC is Mass Maritime. So their last game of the first half, I got to witness that as they came to the island to play Farmington State, and they were shorthanded, is putting it lightly, how shorthanded they really were, because of some players that towards the end of the first semester, they go off into the seas, right?
Yep.
For their school at Mass Maritime. How long are they gone? Do you know? When do they come back? Because they were having a strong first half, but then it kind of dropped off. One kid started going off.
Yeah, part of the problem, and it's not a problem. It's each institution, each school has dynamics that they have to deal with on a year-to-year basis. Mass Maritime's guys from about mid-December until mid-February. Probably 2/3 of their team, I don't want to say probably more than half their team, I don't want to say 2/3, go out to sea. And, they're learning it on a ship environment in the Atlantic. Mass Maritime does their best to try to schedule games along the way. Last year, I think they made a couple stops in Norfolk and picked up a couple of ACC games, and then later came to Florida and picked up a couple of Florida games. But it's a difficult dynamic to get around. They have to get a bulk of their conference and important games scheduled in before mid-December, and then hope that they can grab a game or two by the time they get back before the conference playoffs and then Fed Cup comes around.
So now, not only as well being the NEIHC commissioner, you're the CHF deputy commissioner. So you're involved in the decision making. So two things that come to mind that were announced in the first half of the season: the new division format, which we touched upon earlier, and things such as new sponsorship with Howie's, which has been incorporated into the Player of the Month. What is your reaction to the new announcements coming out the first half of the season?
Well, Jordan. The change to a tiered setup has probably been on the agenda since it's close to day one. It's a reality that has to come into play. I don't think we had planned it to start this season, but there became such a consensus within the conferences leadership and the CHF leadership that it really needed to happen now as opposed to in the immediate future, because there's a true disparity throughout the organization. I mean, ultimately you have some teams that are almost elite, the very good, solid teams, they get huge support from their institutions as well as great coaching. And then you have teams that are just as competitive, but maybe a little lesser support. And then you have the teams that are frankly just happy to play hockey. And dividing them up so that it's matched up appropriately, I think is an absolute necessity. And I think that just is evidenced by the fact that we've gone to it. As far as the dual Fed Cup, that became a challenge once we decided to take the step. But that's really just an addition to our regular Fed Cup schedule, bringing a few more teams in so that we can kind of get that off on the right footing as we move forward. Sponsorship wise, one of the benefits of a fellow like Scott Solomon coming on board as the executive director. Scott's been in the college hockey world for a long time. And he's well connected. He knows a lot of people, and he knows the importance and certainly the ability to bring on corporate sponsors, people who will help cut the dollars and cents factor for the programs, as well as promote the CHF. And Scott's relationship with Howie's goes back 10, 12 years. I mean, I'm sure of that. So Howie's was an easy one, but it was inevitable. Much like the relationship with Ribeiro Hockey and their setup with Andy Sutton. That's another sponsor that not necessarily that Scott went on board, but is right at the forefront now of the CHF. And as we go forward, Scott's leadership, his relationships, and frankly the other relationships and the commitment from the executive board will bring more sponsorship dollars into the program.
So another big announcement we touched on too happened just recently, beginning of the new year, which in the CHS was the announcement of the new women's division in the College Hockey Federation.
I'm sorry, Jordan, I lost you there for 1 second on your question. Could you repeat it for me?
Just asking about your opinion on the new announcement that happened in the new year, just a week ago with the CHS of the new women's division that will be open.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. One of the things that I want to say has been lacking, and that's also an old conversation. Women's hockey is such a huge factor, certainly in the collegiate ranks, and there have been discussions and there have been conversations with the various conferences over the course of time to really establish that. Now that the CHS is on board, that's just a strong, solid footing for that to move on. There are women's divisions affiliated to other CHF conferences, not always aligned to the CHF, but the fact that the CHS is making that step is a great door opener for the development of a CHF women's division. There's way too much women's hockey out there, and frankly, I think the CHF is dying to have a women's division because it's just an extension of what we do, and we think it really has a huge value across the board for our organization.
And lastly, because it's right around the corner, this weekend is the tournament in Savannah. It's coming up Martin Luther King weekend. It's always a big thing. Always get a lot of headlines, get a big turnout, as always, down in Savannah. Yeah.
Well, the best thing about the Savannah tournament, and whether it was, underneath the CHS banner now, it's a great event. It's encapsulated in Savannah itself, and Savannah is a wonderful place to go, even if you're not going for hockey. And it draws a tremendous crowd. It is the perfect college hockey environment because it's all very much in a very confined space, and it's always great competitive hockey depending on which four teams are deciding to go. And then Sarge Day, the former or the grand wizard of the CHS. He's always had a hand in that, and it is just a spectacular tournament. If you're in the region or if you're looking to travel to a great destination and catch some hockey, I would highly recommend it. It is absolutely just a phenomenal hockey weekend.
Yeah, no, it was good last year. Should be good again this year. Georgia Tech, and then two Florida teams, right? Is it Florida and Florida State?
Yeah, I believe so. I
Yes.
believe so. I apologize for not cracking it off on the top of my head.
I believe it's Florida and Florida State. Yeah,
Yeah.
from what I remember being told by Kyle Nell a couple weeks ago when I talked to him.
Yeah.
But Jay, thank you for coming on to the podcast again. I appreciate your time and your information. Enjoy the rest of the week, and I'll see you and talk to you down the line.
All right, Jordan, thanks a lot. It's a pleasure. Take care now.
No problem. Have a good one. So once again,
All right.
alongside Jay Turcotte, my name is Jordan DeLuciano with the CHF Overtime Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you all next week.